They called Evelyn Carter cursed because no one wanted to admit the beasts were kneeling to the girl they had thrown away. The Lycan pit waited beneath Ravenshaw Court like a black mouth carved into stone, ringed by iron gates, silver lamps, and high balconies crowded with nobles who had come to watch a monster be proven. Evelyn stood at the pit's edge with rainwater still clinging to the hem of her gray ward dress, her small body trembling from cold and terror, but her spine refusing to bend. She had pale porcelain skin, long dark ash-brown hair tangled around her shoulders, and silver-gray eyes that looked too tired for 23, too full of feeling for a court that had spent years pretending she had none. Behind her left ear, half hidden by her hair, the faint crescent-shaped scar burned like a secret trying to speak. Lord Silas Mercer stood beside the judgment rail in black lawkeeper robes, gray-brown hair neat, light skin calm, his voice smooth enough to make cruelty sound official. The cursed girl will enter the pit. If the beasts reject her, the court will finally have proof. Lady Vanessa Crown smiled from the front balcony, fair-skinned and golden-haired in a black silver-trimmed gown, beautiful in the way frost was beautiful when it covered something starving. "Let the monsters recognize their own," she said. The nobles laughed softly. Evelyn did not. She looked down into the dark pit where ancient lichens moved in the shadows, massive shapes pacing beneath chains of moonlight, their breath rising in pale clouds. She had spent 6 years behind the curse ward walls hearing them cry at night, not with rage, but with pain no one else cared to understand. She had been forbidden to touch people, forbidden to sit at common tables, forbidden to walk through palace halls without a guard, because the court said her curse spread through closeness. Yet every injured beast quieted when she whispered near the kennels. Every locked creature lifted its head when she sang. And every night, in dreams she never confessed, one name echoed through the scar behind her ear, older than the pit, older than Ravenshaw law, a name that felt like gold fire under her tongue. The guards opened the gate. Evelyn stepped down because being dragged would give the court another story to tell. A sound rolled from the pit, deep and hungry enough to silence every whisper above. Then Alpha King Caleb Ravenshaw entered the court. The room changed before anyone announced him. He was 35, tall and powerful, with broad shoulders, light olive skin, black hair brushed back from a sharp, cold, dangerous face, and molten gold Lycan eyes that made even the oldest nobles lower their heads. He looked at the pit. Then he looked at Evelyn. For 1 second, the beast inside him went utterly still. Silas called, "Proceed." The first Lycan stepped from the dark, enormous, silver-eyed, breathing hard. Evelyn's fear rose so high it almost became silence. But the scar behind her ear burned, and the forbidden name came to her like memory. She whispered it once. Not loudly. Not like a spell. Like a girl calling someone home. Selim. The Lycan stopped. Every beast in the pit stopped with it. Above them, the court froze. Caleb Ravenshaw's molten gold eyes flared as if the name had struck the secret heart of his own beast. One by one, the Lycans lowered their heads. Then every beast in the pit knelt before Evelyn Carter. 3 weeks before Ravenshaw Court watched every beast kneel, Evelyn Carter woke to the sound of iron keys and someone whispering monster outside her door. The curse ward behind the palace kennels was not a prison, according to official language. It had windows, a cot, a wash basin, a narrow shelf for folded gray dresses, and a door that could be opened from the outside whenever Lord Silas Mercer decided she was needed. But the windows were barred with silver thread, the hallway guards wore gloves when they brought her food, and every person in Ravenshaw Palace had been taught since Evelyn was 17 that touching her skin invited misfortune. She sat up slowly beneath a thin wool blanket, pale porcelain skin chilled by the early morning air, long dark ash-brown hair falling tangled over her shoulders, silver-gray eyes heavy from dreams she could never admit having. Behind her left ear, hidden under her hair, the faint crescent-shaped scar pulsed once, as if answering something far below the floor. The Lycans in the pit were awake. She could feel it before she heard them. Not words, not exactly. More like sorrow pressed through stone. Evelyn placed her bare feet on the cold floor and waited for the feeling to pass, because cursed girls were not allowed to look compassionate. Compassion suggested choice, and the court preferred monsters simple. The guard opened her door and set a tray on the floor without crossing the threshold. Oatmeal, no sugar, 1 tin cup of water, and a folded work order stamped with the black seal of the curse office. Pit laundry by 7, he said, keeping his eyes on the wall beside her. Kennel drains after that. Do not speak to the Westgate beasts unless ordered. Evelyn looked at the tray. Good morning to you too. The guard flinched as if politeness from her had sharp edges. Do not make jokes. I was making an effort. He shut the door. Evelyn smiled for no one, then ate quickly because hunger made pride dramatic and useless. By sunrise, she was walking through the service corridor with her gray ward dress buttoned to the throat, her hands wrapped in plain cloth gloves, and her hair pulled low enough to hide the scar. Palace servants stepped aside before she reached them. Some crossed themselves in the old pack sign. Others simply looked away. A young maid dropped a basket when Evelyn passed, then apologized to the basket instead of to her. Evelyn bent to help gather the fallen towels. The maid jerked back. Please do not touch them. Evelyn froze, one hand above the clean linen. The girl was barely 16, cheeks red with fear she had learned from adults. Evelyn lowered her hand. Of course. The maid grabbed the towels and hurried away. Evelyn stood alone in the corridor, listening to the small sound of her own breathing. That was how the curse worked best. It did not need chains if it could make kindness feel dangerous. Outside, the palace kennels spread behind Ravenshaw Court in long black stone rows, with iron gates, covered walkways, storage sheds, and the deep circular descent that led to the Lycan pit. The air smelled of rain, wet straw, old herbs, and the metallic cold of silver locks. Evelyn carried baskets of stained bandages to the washhouse, scrubbed them in hot water until steam reddened her face, then hung them on lines where no one else would have to stand too near her. The work was hard, but it was honest, and honest things were rare in a place where everyone called cruelty safety. Near mid-morning, Mara Finch slipped into the washhouse with a bucket almost too heavy for her arms. She was a servant Omega, small and nervous, with brown skin and dark curls tucked under a cap, and she was the only person in the kennels who sometimes forgot to be afraid. I brought the yarrow soap, Mara whispered. Dr. Alara said the Eastgate beast slept after you hummed last night. Evelyn took the soap carefully without touching Mara's fingers. Dr. Alara should not say that where others can hear. She did not. I listened badly. Evelyn gave her a warning look, but Mara smiled. I am serious. The beast was calmer. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows I caused trouble. Everyone says that because Lord Mercer says it first. Evelyn glanced toward the open door. Mara. The younger girl lowered her voice. I am sorry. Evelyn softened. Do not be sorry for seeing things. Just be careful about naming them. After Mara left, Evelyn finished the laundry and carried clean bandages to the infirmary stalls where injured Lycans were kept behind double gates. The beasts were enormous even when lying down, all heavy shadows, silver eyes, and breath like fog and cold air. Palace handlers approached them with hooked poles, command whistles, and fear hard enough to smell. Evelyn approached with quiet steps and open hands, staying outside the gate because rules mattered even when they were unfair. In the third stall, a black-furred Lycan with a torn ear paced restlessly, striking its shoulder against the bars not with violence, but distress. The handlers muttered about sedation. Evelyn heard the sound under its growl, a cracked rhythm that meant pain near the ribs. She hummed low, the same melody her mother once sang while brushing mud from Evelyn's shoes after market days. The beast stopped pacing. Its silver eyes turned toward her. One handler swore under his breath. Do not talk to it. I am not talking. That sound counts. Evelyn stopped humming. The beast began pacing again, faster. The handler looked from the Lycan to Evelyn, hatred and fear mixing across his face, because he had seen proof and did not want responsibility for understanding it. Get away from the stall. Evelyn stepped back. The Lycan pressed its head briefly against the bars, not reaching for her, only listening for the song that had vanished. Her scar pulsed behind her ear, and for one dangerous second, a name rose in her mind. Not the old forbidden name from her dreams. A smaller name. A true name belonging to the injured beast. She swallowed it before it touched her tongue. Speaking names was how the world ended for girls like her. At noon, she ate alone on the stone step behind the supply shed while servants gathered at outdoor tables 30 feet away. The distance had been measured by curse law. No communal table, no shared cup, no unloved contact, no chapel attendance, no festival dancing, no pack run, no winter fireside seating. The rules had numbers and seals, which made them look less like loneliness. Evelyn broke a hard roll in half and fed crumbs to a small gray bird hopping near the drain. A kennel boy saw her and shouted, "Careful, bird. She will curse your wings." The others laughed. Evelyn kept her hand open until the bird took the crumb anyway. That tiny trust nearly undid her. By afternoon, Lady Vanessa Crown arrived for Luna candidate inspection in a black silver-trimmed gown that never touched the mud. Her fair skin looked flawless beneath a fur-lined hood, blonde hair arranged in soft waves, face calm with the practiced pity nobles used when they wanted cruelty to look educated. Lord Silas Mercer walked beside her, light skin pale under the cloudy sky, gray-brown hair neat, black lawkeeper robes brushing the wet stones. They stopped near Evelyn as if she were another enclosure to evaluate. Vanessa looked at the gloves on Evelyn's hands. "Still necessary?" Silas answered before Evelyn could. "The curse remains active." Vanessa tilted her head. "How sad. Such a pretty face wasted in the ward." Evelyn stared at the ground. Pretty, when spoken like that, meant a cracked vase not worth repairing. Vanessa stepped closer, close enough that Evelyn smelled expensive rose oil. "Do the beasts still cry when she walks by?" Silas smiled slightly. "They react to contamination." Evelyn's hands tightened around the laundry basket. "They react to pain." Silence snapped across the walkway. Mara, standing near the supply door, went still. Vanessa's eyes brightened. "Did it speak?" Silas turned toward Evelyn. "You were not asked to interpret beasts." Evelyn lowered her gaze, but she could not pull the words back. "No one asks them either." Vanessa laughed softly. "There it is. Sympathy for monsters. How touching. Lycans are not monsters." Silas's expression chilled. "And you are not a healer." Evelyn thought of Dr. Alara Reed, the only palace healer who looked at the crescent scar behind her ear with questions instead of disgust. Alara had once whispered, "This mark is too clean for a curse," while changing bandages near the ward, but even she had not dared write that in a record. Records belonged to Silas. Truth did not. Vanessa turned toward the east gate stall, where the black-furred Lycan had finally lowered itself onto straw. If she is so gentle, let her stand nearer. Evelyn's stomach dropped. Silas lifted a hand. "Lady Vanessa, curse protocol does not allow unnecessary approach. Then perhaps protocol protects the curse too much." Vanessa's gaze slid back to Evelyn. "Sing to it." Evelyn's mouth went dry. No, the answer came out before fear could dress it politely. Vanessa's brows rose. "No?" Silas stepped closer. "You refuse a noble candidate?" Evelyn looked at the beast, then at Mara, then at the handler gripping the command whistle too tightly. If she sang and the beast calmed, Vanessa would call it forbidden magic. If she refused, Silas would write disobedience into her curse record. There was no clean path. That was the genius of cages. "I refuse to turn a hurt creature into entertainment," Evelyn said. The courtyard went silent. Vanessa's smile disappeared. Silas studied Evelyn with the quiet satisfaction of a man watching a trap close exactly as designed. "Document insubordination," he told the attendant beside him. Evelyn knew then that something had shifted. Not because she had been brave. Because Vanessa had seen the beast calm when Evelyn was near, and fear made nobles faster than mercy. That night, after the yard emptied and the rain returned, Evelyn carried one hidden strip of clean bandage to the east gate stall. She stayed outside the second line, where the law allowed her to stand if no one was watching. The black-furred Lycan lifted its head. Evelyn hummed very softly. The beast's breathing slowed. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I cannot say your name." The scar behind her left ear warmed. Deep beneath the pit, other beasts stirred, answering without words. Far away beyond the kennels, horns sounded at the front palace gates. Alpha King Caleb Ravenshaw had returned from the border campaign. Evelyn did not know it yet. She only knew that the beasts suddenly went silent, as if something older than fear had entered the palace grounds, and the forbidden name from her dreams woke behind her scar like gold fire waiting to be spoken. Evelyn Carter was 17 the first time a beast knelt for her, and that was the day Ravenshaw Court decided fear would be easier to manage if they called it a curse. Before the ward, before the gloves, before servants stepped away from her in hallways, she had been a quiet kennel helper with pale porcelain skin, long dark ash-brown hair, and silver-gray eyes that always looked too closely at suffering. Her mother had once worked in the lower infirmary near the palace kennels, washing herbs, folding bandages, and teaching Evelyn that every creature had a language if someone was patient enough to listen. Evelyn believed her. She learned which Lycans hated sharp lantern light, which ones calmed when rain hit the roof, which ones refused food when handlers shouted too quickly. She did not think that made her strange. She thought kindness was supposed to notice things. Then came the winter inspection when she was 17. A young Lycan had been brought from the border, frightened by iron gates, court horns, and too many people watching from the upper rail. The handlers called it unstable. Lord Silas Mercer called it dangerous. Lady Vanessa Crown, younger then but already polished into noble cruelty, stood among the visitors with a silver scarf around her throat and said the pit should not waste food on broken beasts. Evelyn remembered the creature's breathing, fast and uneven. She remembered the way everyone spoke around its fear without once speaking to it. Then something behind her left ear began to burn. Not pain exactly. More like a door opening under her skin. A name rose inside her, soft and impossible, made of moonlight and old grief. She did not understand it. She only whispered it because the beast's eyes had found hers through the bars, and no one else seemed willing to offer mercy. The Lycan stopped shaking. Its enormous head lowered. Slowly, gently, it knelt. For one heartbeat, Evelyn thought she had saved something. Then the court began to scream. Not because the beast had harmed anyone. Because it had obeyed the wrong girl. Silas moved faster than mercy. By sunset, he had taken her to the curse office beneath the East Tower, where records smelled of dust, seal wax, and decisions made before girls were allowed to answer. He asked what words she had spoken. Evelyn said she did not know. He asked who taught her beast language. She said no one. He asked whether her mother had hidden books, marks, family names, old songs. Evelyn went silent then, because the only thing stronger than fear was the instinct to protect the dead. Silas wrote cursed response before the ink on her answers dried. He declared that her voice carried forbidden beast influence, that her presence caused unnatural submission, that her skin could spread instability through contact. Dr. Alara Reed, new to the palace then, examined the crescent-shaped burn that had appeared behind Evelyn's left ear and frowned. "This is too precise for curse damage," she said. Silas closed the record in front of her, then recorded as precise danger. That night, they moved Evelyn into the curse ward. Her mother was already gone by then, taken by fever the year before, leaving only a wooden comb, a bundle of herb notes, and one warning Evelyn had not understood until too late. If you hear a name that feels older than your fear, do not speak it where the court can hear. Evelyn kept the comb hidden beneath her mattress for 6 years. She ran her thumb over its worn teeth whenever the ward walls felt too close. The palace taught her new rules. Do not touch. Do not sing. Do not stand near the pit gates without permission. Do not look noble guests in the eye. Do not correct a handler when a beast hurts. Do not say you hear anything. Most days, she obeyed because survival sometimes sounded like silence. But obedience did not make the name stop. They came in dreams first, smaller names belonging to injured Lycans, names that tasted like rain, pine smoke, river stone, snow ashes. Then came the greater name, Selim. It was not like the others. It carried heat and command, but also loneliness so old it made Evelyn wake with tears on her face. The first time she dreamed it, She stood in the Lycan pit under a full moon, surrounded by beasts that did not threaten her. They waited. Beyond them, a golden-eyed shadow stood at the edge of the dark, chained not by iron but by a crown. When she whispered the name in the dream, the shadow turned toward her as if it had been called home. Evelyn woke with the scar behind her ear glowing silver and gold. She pressed both hands over her mouth until the light faded. She did not know whose name it was. She only knew saying it aloud would change everything. After that, fear became practical. She avoided the royal pit chamber when horns announced the Alpha King was near. She hid in laundry rooms during court inspections. She lowered her voice around royal guards because sometimes their presence made the scar warm. The court believed she was dangerous to beasts, but Evelyn's truest fear was the opposite, that the beasts recognized something in her she did not know how to protect. If she was really cursed, then every kindness she offered might become harm. If she was not cursed, then 6 years had been stolen from her for nothing. Some nights, she was not sure which truth terrified her more. The evening Alpha King Caleb Ravenshaw returned from the border campaign, the entire curse ward. Changed temperature. Evelyn stood outside the east gate stall, humming softly to the injured Blackford Lycan, when the palace horn sounded and every beast in the kennels went silent at once. Not frightened. Listening. The scar behind Evelyn's left ear burned so brightly she had to grip the gatepost. Deep in the pit, the greater name woke again. Selim. This time, it did not feel like a dream. It felt like someone inside the palace had answered. Evelyn stepped back from the gate, breathing hard, and pulled her hair over the glowing scar. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to find Mara Finch in the doorway, face pale with worry. You felt him return, Mara whispered. Evelyn wanted to deny it. She wanted to say she felt nothing, heard nothing, knew nothing. But from the royal courtyard beyond the kennels came the heavy silence that followed only one man in Ravenshaw Palace, and beneath that silence, the beasts waited for Evelyn to speak the name she had spent 6 years burying. I felt something, she said at last. Mara looked toward the pit. Is it bad? Evelyn touched the scar behind her ear, where silver heat pulsed like a hidden moon. I do not know. And that is what scares me. The night Alpha King Caleb Ravenshaw returned, the curse ward received more attention than it had in 6 years, and none of it felt like mercy. Evelyn Carter stood in the narrow service corridor behind the kennels with her gray ward dress buttoned to her throat, her pale porcelain skin chilled by the rain-soaked air, her long dark ash-brown hair pulled low to hide the faint crescent-shaped scar behind her left ear, and her silver-gray eyes fixed on the palace guards blocking the path back to her room. Mara Finch stood a few feet behind her, hands clenched around a bucket, brown face tight with fear, but Lord Silas Mercer had already ordered every servant away from the east gate. Miss Carter is required for inspection, he said, his light skin pale beneath the lanterns, gray-brown hair neat, black lawkeeper robes untouched by kennel mud. Evelyn looked past him toward the deep corridor that led to the Lycan pit. The beasts below were silent. That silence was worse than growling. It meant they were listening. Lady Vanessa Crown emerged from the royal walkway as if the rain and fear had been arranged for her entrance. She wore a black silver-trimmed gown beneath a fur-lined cloak, fair skin luminous under torchlight, blonde hair pinned with dark pearls, and a smile that made pity look like a polished knife. I told you she could quiet them, Vanessa said. The king should see what has been living behind his kennels. Evelyn's stomach tightened. I did not do anything. Vanessa's eyes brightened. That is always what dangerous girls say before witnesses arrive. Silas opened a leather record folder. During Luna candidate inspection, Miss Carter refused noble instruction, displayed unauthorized sympathy toward a restricted Lycan, and produced calming influence without healer order. Evelyn let out a short breath. Produced calming influence. Is that what you call not frightening an injured creature? You are not qualified to define your own curse. The words were quiet, but they pressed against 6 years of locked doors. Evelyn looked toward the upper palace arch where black banners moved in the wind. Horns had announced Caleb Ravenshaw less than an hour earlier, and already the palace felt rearranged around him. Servants whispered that he had returned from the border campaign with bloodless victories, that enemy packs surrendered when his Lycan eyes turned gold, that the beasts under Ravenshaw rule knew his step before he entered a room. Evelyn had never stood near him. She had only seen him once from a ward window, a tall black-clad figure crossing the courtyard as every guard bowed. Yet the name from her dreams had burned awake when the horn sounded. Selim. She swallowed it down until it hurt. If this is about the injured Lycan, she said carefully, call Dr. Alara Reed. She can explain its ribs were hurting. Vanessa laughed softly. How tender. The cursed girl diagnoses beasts now. I listen when they are in pain. Silas's gaze sharpened. That sentence will be entered into record. Before Evelyn could answer, Dr. Alara Reed arrived through the rain with her healer's satchel, dark brown skin damp under her hood, calm. Eyes moving from Evelyn to Silas to the East Gate stall. I requested quiet in this yard, she said. Not a court procession. Vanessa smiled. Then you should be grateful. We are bringing the matter to royal attention. Alara stepped closer to Evelyn, stopping at a respectful distance. Did they touch you? Evelyn shook her head. No, did you speak any names? The question was too precise. Evelyn went still. Silas noticed. Vanessa noticed too. Alara's mouth tightened, as if she regretted asking where wolves could hear. Then the royal doors opened at the end of the kennel court, and every conversation died. Caleb Ravenshaw entered with no ceremony, which somehow made him more impossible to ignore. He was 35, tall and powerful with broad shoulders, light olive skin, black hair brushed back from a sharp, cold, dangerous face and molten gold Lycan eyes that swept across the yard with controlled authority. He wore a black traveling coat trimmed in dark silver, rain on his shoulders, border dust still on his boots, and the kind of silence that made the whole palace remember who ruled it. Behind him came 2 royal guards and an older commander, but Evelyn barely saw them. The scar behind her left ear burned so brightly she almost stepped back. Deep under the pit, the beasts shifted all at once. Caleb's gaze moved to her immediately. Not to Vanessa. Not to Silas. To the place where her hair covered the scar. Evelyn's heart began to pound. Vanessa bowed low. Your Majesty, forgive the disturbance on your return. I believed you should witness a risk hidden too long inside your own palace. Caleb did not look away from Evelyn. What risk? Silas answered, Evelyn Carter, Curse Ward resident, classified at 17 after unnatural Lycan submission. Recent behavior suggests forbidden beast influence. Caleb's eyes narrowed slightly. Influence or calm? The question made Silas pause. The difference can only be determined by inspection. Vanessa gestured toward the East Gate stall. The black-furred Lycan inside had risen, silver eyes fixed not on the handlers, not on the king, but on Evelyn. The handlers stiffened. One reached for a command whistle. Evelyn's. Fear overrode caution. Do not use that. The sound hurts him. Everyone turned to her. Silas's expression filled with satisfaction, as if she had stepped exactly where he wanted. She admits specific sensitivity. I admit ears exist, Evelyn said before she could stop herself. Mara made a tiny frightened sound behind her. Caleb's mouth did not move, but something in his golden eyes changed, as if the answer had cut through more court fog than he expected. He walked toward the stall. The Lycan lowered its head, not kneeling, not resisting, only trembling from pain and too many watching eyes. Evelyn felt its small true name rise behind her scar, but beneath it came the greater name, glowing like buried fire. She pressed her hand behind her ear. Caleb saw. Does the mark hurt? Evelyn hated that he asked like a person, not a judge. It reacts. To what? Silas interjected, questions should be formalized in chamber. Caleb glanced at him, and the lawkeeper fell silent. Evelyn could have lied. She had survived 6 years by lying with silence. But Caleb stood 10 feet away, and every beast beneath the palace had gone still as if waiting for the same answer. To beasts, she said. Sometimes to pain. Tonight to you. Vanessa inhaled sharply. Silas closed the record folder. That is sufficient for court review. Caleb's face hardened, but before he could speak, the The black-furred Lycan pressed closer to the bars, breathing fast. A handler panicked and lifted the command whistle. Evelyn stepped forward. Not across the safety line. Not close enough to touch, but enough to be heard. "Please," she said. "Lower it." The handler froze between fear of the Lycan and fear of the king. Caleb gave one small nod. The whistle lowered. Evelyn let out a breath and hummed the first note of her mother's old song. The Lycan stilled. The yard stilled with it. Caleb's molten gold eyes brightened, and the beast inside him answered the note with a silence so deep Evelyn felt it in her bones. Then the scar behind her left ear flashed silver. Vanessa whispered, "There. You all saw it." Silas raised his voice. "Public Lycan pit trial is required under Ravenshaw law. If her curse influences royal beasts in the king's presence, the court must judge it before dawn." Alara stepped forward. "No. This is a medical and archival matter. Her mark needs examination." "The pit law supersedes healer preference," Silas said. Evelyn stared at the dark stairwell leading down to the pit. 6 years of ward rules tightened around her throat. "You are sending me to the pit because I calmed a wounded beast." Vanessa's expression remained sweet. "If you are innocent, the beasts will prove it." "That is not innocence. That is spectacle." Caleb turned to Silas. "Who authorized immediate trial?" "The Luna safety articles permit a noble candidate to call review when royal succession is exposed to forbidden influence." Vanessa lowered her eyes with perfect humility. "I call it." The words fell like a gate locking. Caleb looked at Evelyn again, and for the first time she saw something dangerous under his control that was not aimed at her. Anger, yes, but also suspicion. Not of her. Of the law being used around her. "She will not be taken to the pit tonight," he said. Silas bowed. "Then hold her in royal pit chamber until dawn review. The beast's reaction must be observed under guard." Evelyn's chest tightened. "I am not an exhibit." Caleb's gaze returned to her. "No, one word. Heavy. Final." Then he added, "You are a witness." She almost laughed because hope was too strange a thing to trust. "To what?" His golden eyes flicked toward Silas's record folder, Vanessa's satisfied smile, Alara's worried face, and the silent beast behind the bars. "To whatever my court has been afraid to name." The scar behind Evelyn's ear warmed, and deep below them the Lycan pit gave a low answering sound, not rage, not hunger, but recognition. Guards opened the stairwell to the royal pit chamber. Evelyn walked because refusing would become another record. Caleb followed several paces behind, close enough that the name inside her burned brighter, distant enough that he did not crowd her. As they descended into the cold stone beneath Ravenshaw Palace, Evelyn heard the beasts moving in the dark, all of them turning toward her footsteps, and she knew the world above had just become smaller than the secret waiting below. The royal pit chamber was built for beasts, but Evelyn Carter knew at once that the court had always used it to study fear. The room curved deep beneath Ravenshaw Palace in a half-circle of black stone, with iron gates set into the walls, silver lamps burning low, and a narrow observation bridge above where nobles could watch without smelling the cold, damp air below. Evelyn stood near the inner safety line in her gray ward dress, small and pale under the lamps, her porcelain skin chilled by the underground air, her long dark ash-brown hair pulled forward to hide the crescent-shaped scar behind her left ear, and her silver-gray eyes fixed on the oldest gate because every beast behind it had gone silent when she entered. Alpha King Caleb Ravenshaw stood several paces behind her, tall and powerful with broad shoulders, light olive skin, black hair brushed back from a sharp, dangerous face, and molten gold Lycan eyes that watched the chamber with controlled suspicion. He did not stand close enough to trap her. He did not touch her. But his presence filled the space so completely that even the handlers spoke softer. Lord Silas Mercer opened his record folder near the wall, calm in black lawkeeper robes. Lady Vanessa Crown remained on the observation bridge above, fair-skinned and golden-haired in her black silver-trimmed gown, her face arranged into concern that did not reach her eyes. Dr. Alara Reed stood near Evelyn with her healer's satchel, dark brown skin warm under lamplight, her voice quiet when she said, No one examines the mark without your consent. Evelyn almost looked at her in surprise. Consent was a word rarely offered to cursed girls. I consent to you, Evelyn said. Not to him. Silas smiled thinly. Her hostility toward law is noted. Caleb's golden eyes moved to him. So is your eagerness. The chamber fell silent again. Alara gently parted Evelyn's hair behind her left ear without pulling it. The faint crescent-shaped scar glowed beneath her touch, silver at the edges, gold at the center. Alara's expression changed. This is not spreading. Silas closed one hand over his folder. Curse marks do not always spread visibly. This is not a curse mark. The words struck the chamber like a dropped blade, though no one moved. Evelyn's breath caught. Vanessa leaned over the rail. Healer, be careful. Alara did not look up. I am being careful. The line is too clean. The heat is contained. It has a listening response, not a corruption pattern. Evelyn whispered, listening. Before Alara could answer, the oldest gate shuddered once. A royal Lycan stepped out of the shadow behind the bars, enormous, dark-furred, silver-eyed, breathing hard but not wild. Handlers raised their whistles. Evelyn stiffened. Caleb lifted one hand, and the whistles lowered. The beast looked past everyone and fixed its eyes on Evelyn. The scar behind her ear burned. A small name rose in her mind first, the name of the injured beast from the East Gate, but beneath it came the greater name, the Forbidden One, bright as gold fire. She locked her jaw. Silas watched her closely. Ask her what she hears. Evelyn shook her head. No, Vanessa's voice floated down. Because saying it would reveal what she is? Evelyn's hands curled at her sides. Because names are not toys for court balconies. The royal Lycan pressed its head against the bars and made a low, grieving sound. It was not a threat. It was a plea. Evelyn knew it with the certainty of hunger, rain, and breath. On a pedestal near the gate rested the pit oath chain, an ancient silver-linked relic used by handlers to test whether a beast recognized command. Cursed residents were forbidden to touch it. Even handlers used gloves. Silas saw Evelyn's eyes move toward it and smiled. If she claims compassion, let her prove calm without forbidden speech. Place her hand on the pit oath chain. If her curse is active, the chain will blacken. Alara turned sharply. That relic is not a healer's tool. It is a lawful pit instrument. Caleb's voice went cold. It is also coercion if she is not given refusal. Silas bowed. Then ask her, Your Majesty. Before witnesses. Every gaze turned to Evelyn. Refuse, and Silas would write fear as guilt. Accept, and the chain might make the court believe the worst. Evelyn looked at the beast behind the gate, then at Caleb. He did not tell her what to do. He only said, You can refuse. She wanted to. Every lesson of 6 years told her to stay small, stay silent, survive the accusation by giving them as little of herself as possible. But the beast's sorrow pressed through the chamber, and the scar behind her ear answered. If she kept hiding, Silas would keep naming her. If she touched the forbidden thing, at least the truth might have a chance to name itself. I will touch it, Evelyn said. But not because he ordered me. Because something in this room has been lied about longer than I have. Caleb's expression shifted, almost painfully. Alara stepped beside her, close enough to steady if asked, but not touching. Evelyn reached for the pit oath chain. The silver links were cold for one heartbeat. Then they warmed. Light ran through them, not black, not red, but clear silver threaded with gold. The crescent scar behind Evelyn's ear blazed so brightly her hair lifted from her skin. The royal Lycan behind the gate lowered its head to the floor. Every beast in the lower pit answered with silence. Not empty silence. Reverent silence. The chain uncoiled from the pedestal by itself and fell in a perfect circle around Evelyn's feet without touching her, as if marking witness, not capture. Words appeared along the silver links in Old Lycan script. Alara covered her mouth. Caleb stepped closer despite himself, stopping before he crowded the circle. Read it, he said. Silas snapped. Old script is unstable under curse response. The chain rang once, sharp and bright, and Silas went still. Alara's voice trembled as she read. Keep her blood hears without binding. True names answer consent, pain, and crown beast. Evelyn's knees almost weakened. Keeper blood. Not curse. Not monster. Not proof yet, maybe, but not nothing. Vanessa's face had gone pale above them. Crown beast, she asked too quickly. Caleb's golden eyes were fixed on Evelyn now, and something behind them had gone utterly still, the same deep stillness she had felt when he entered the kennel yard. The forbidden name rose again. Selim. This time it did not stay behind her teeth. She did not say it aloud. She only breathed in, and Caleb's beast answered inside the chamber with a silent golden pressure that bent every lamp flame toward Evelyn. The royal Lycan at the gate knelt fully. Then the second gate answered. Then the third. One by one, unseen beasts lowered themselves in the dark. No command had been given. No chain had tightened. Evelyn stood inside the silver-gold circle, shaking, while the monsters she had been blamed for harming bowed as if they had finally found someone who heard them. Silas recovered first because fear made him efficient. Name-binding influence, he declared. This proves active threat to royal beasts and possibly to the Alpha King. Caleb turned on him. It proves the chain did not blacken. It proves she can trigger crown beast response without speech. Vanessa descended from the observation bridge, her beautiful face hard now beneath the mask. Your Majesty, if your beast answers her, you cannot judge this safely. There it was. The next cage. Evelyn looked at Caleb and saw the law closing around him before he did. If his beast reacted to her, his defense became bias. If he protected her, Silas would call it proof. The chain at Evelyn's feet began to dim, but the words stayed visible. Keeper blood hears without binding. She held on to that line like breath. Caleb's voice dropped. The archive will be opened. Silas's eyes narrowed. Only after the Dawn Pit review. Now, the Luna safety articles give the noble candidate authority to demand immediate restriction. Vanessa stepped beside Silas. Then I demand it. Ilara protested. She needs rest and a proper examination. Vanessa looked down at Evelyn. She needs distance from the king before whatever she is reaches deeper. Evelyn wanted to say she was not reaching for anyone. She wanted to say the only thing she had ever reached for was mercy, and even that had been punished. But her throat felt too tight, and the chamber was full of people translating her existence into danger. Caleb looked at the guards. She is moved to the royal pit chamber suite, not a cage. Open door. 2 guards outside for her protection. Ilara attends her with consent. No one questions her without me or Miriam Archive present. Silas's mouth tightened at the unfamiliar name. Miriam Archive is retired. Then unretire her. For the first time, Evelyn almost smiled. It vanished quickly when the royal Lycan behind the bars made one soft sound. The scar behind her ear warmed, and a small true name brushed her thoughts. She did not speak it. Caleb noticed the struggle. You hear them. It was not an accusation. That made it harder to answer. Yes. Do you command them? Evelyn looked at the kneeling shadow beyond the gate. No. I think they have been waiting for someone to stop commanding them badly. Caleb's face softened by 1 degree, which on him felt like sunrise through a locked window. Then we find out who taught this court to call waiting a curse. Above them, Vanessa's eyes turned cold with calculation, and Silas closed his record folder with careful hands. Evelyn felt it then, not victory, not safety, but the exact moment the people who feared her understood she might become believed. That made her more dangerous than any monster they had named. The royal pit chamber suite had a door that stayed open, which should have made it feel less like a cage, but Evelyn Carter had learned that cages did not always need locks to work. Some were built from guards standing too carefully outside, from silver lamps that never dimmed, from records waiting to decide whether a girl was a witness or a threat. She sat near the narrow hearth in the chamber beneath Ravenshaw Palace, wrapped in a clean dark gray shawl Dr. Ilara Reed had brought her small body folded with exhaustion, but still held upright, pale porcelain skin warmed by firelight. Long dark ash-brown hair loose enough to hide the glowing crescent scar behind her left ear, and silver-gray eyes fixed on the open doorway where Alpha King Caleb Ravenshaw stood several paces away. He was too large for the room without trying to be, tall and powerful with broad shoulders, light olive skin, black hair brushed back from his sharp, cold, dangerous face, and molten gold Lycan eyes that seemed brighter in the underground dark. He had removed his rain-darkened traveling coat, but the black shirt and silver royal clasp beneath it still made him look like command given human shape. Evelyn hated how aware she was of him. Hated that his silence did not feel empty. Hated that every beast below the chamber had been restless until he entered, then quieted when she looked up. "You can close the door if you want privacy," he said. Evelyn almost laughed. "And leave you outside your own pit chamber? It is not mine tonight. Everything here is yours." Caleb's gaze moved to the walls, the silver lamps, the guards beyond the threshold, the deep stone beneath their feet. "That is becoming less impressive the longer I look at it." The answer unsettled her because kings were supposed to defend their cages by calling them order. She pulled the shawl tighter. "If you are trying to make me trust you, honesty is a dangerous strategy. Then distrust me honestly." She looked at him then, really looked, and found no smile, no charm, no easy softness meant to tame her. Only a powerful man standing far enough away to let her breathe, while the beast inside him watched her through molten gold eyes. Attraction moved through her without permission, sharp and unwanted, like the first warmth after years of cold hands. She looked away first. "Your lawkeeper will say this room proves I am influencing you." "My lawkeeper says many convenient things." "He is still your lawkeeper." Caleb accepted the blow without flinching. "Yes. Your curse ward. Your pit law. Your guards. Your nobles watching from high balconies while people like me are made into warnings." Yes. The fire cracked between them. Evelyn expected defense, explanation, a royal history lesson about safety and tradition. Caleb gave none. "I returned tonight and found a woman in my kennel yard who had been isolated for 6 years under laws I inherited and did not question closely enough. I will not insult you by pretending that is not mine to answer for." The words pressed against her anger in a place she did not want touched. An apology does not unlock 6 years. No. Evidence might. Before she could answer, Dr. Alara entered with a tray, careful and calm. "Tea, bread, and an examination only if you still agree." Evelyn glanced at the guards. Caleb turned immediately. "No one enters past the threshold unless she gives permission." The guards stepped back. Alara set the tray on the table and knelt beside the chair, not above her. "May I see the scar again?" Evelyn nodded. Caleb turned toward the doorway. "Stay," Evelyn said, surprising herself. He stopped. She swallowed. "If Silas later claims you were not present, he will twist her findings." Caleb remained where he was, eyes lowered respectfully. Alara parted Evelyn's hair and studied the crescent mark behind her left ear under a small silver lens. The scar warmed, but it did not burn. "The seal is old," Alara murmured. Evelyn stiffened. "Seal. Not curse." The word made the room tilt. Alara looked sorry she had said it too soon. "I cannot prove it yet. But the pattern is not spreading outward. It is folded inward, as if something was locked down, not released." Caleb's voice was quiet. "Locked down by whom?" "A trained curse keeper. Or someone with access to old pit rights." Evelyn closed her eyes. Silas. 17. The office beneath the tower. His smooth voice declaring her dangerous before anyone asked what the beast had felt. "Why would they seal me and then call it a curse?" "Because a seal can be questioned," Alara said softly. "A curse can be feared." Evelyn laughed once, brittle and quiet. "Efficient." Caleb's hands closed slowly, then opened again at his sides. He did not cross the room. He did not offer comfort that would make the moment about his mercy. That restraint made her chest ache. Alara covered the mark gently with Evelyn's hair. "You need sleep." Evelyn looked toward the floor. "The beasts will not sleep." As if answering, a low sound moved through the stone beneath them, not threatening, but mournful. The scar warmed. A small name brushed her thoughts, then another. Too many. Evelyn pressed both hands over her ears, but names did not enter through sound. Caleb moved one step, then stopped. "Tell me what helps." The question was raw enough to break through panic. No one had ever asked. Not what controlled her. Not what proved her safe. What helped? Evelyn breathed unsteadily. Lower the lamps. Caleb nodded to the guard. The silver lamps dimmed by half. The pressure eased. No whistles. They are removed. Do not let handlers shout down there. Caleb looked at the commander outside. Quiet order for all lower pit staff. The distant voices faded. The names softened from a storm to rain. Evelyn lowered her hands slowly. How did you know to ask? His golden eyes shifted toward the floor. My beast does not like command when pain is the reason for disobedience. The scar behind Evelyn's ear pulsed gold. Your beast. Caleb's face went still. You hear something from him. She should have lied. Every instinct trained by the ward told her to swallow the truth until it became another secret under her skin. But forced proximity had become something more complicated than being held nearby. He was danger, yes, but he was also the first danger that kept giving her space. I hear a name, she said. The room seemed to stop breathing. Alara went motionless. Caleb's gold eyes darkened. Do not say it unless you choose to. Evelyn's throat tightened. There it was again. Choice placed in her hands like a fragile, unfamiliar object. Silas says names bind. Do you believe him? I believe he wants everyone else to. And you. She looked at the open door, the guards outside, the stone floor that carried the beast's sorrow, the king standing at a distance because she had not invited him closer. I think names can call something home. I do not know if that is safer. Caleb's expression softened just enough that she hated wanting to look longer. Home is not always safe. But it should be. Alara rose quietly. I will check the archive access request. Caleb turned. Send for Miriam Archive directly. Not through Silas. Alara nodded, then paused near the door. Your Majesty, if the seal is real, Evelyn should not be placed in the pit trial. She will not be if I can stop it. Evelyn heard the danger in the conditional. If. Caleb looked back at her. Vanessa invoked Luna's safety articles. Silas will argue I am affected because my beast responded to your mark. If I overrule the trial without proof, they will say you reached me. And if you do not, they will try to use the pit against you. The truth was clean and terrible. Evelyn stood, the shawl slipping from one shoulder. Then why keep me here? Because the beasts are calmer when you are near, and because I can protect you better in an open room than Silas can bury you in the curse ward. Protect me or observe me? Both, if I am honest. Her eyes flashed. I am not a royal experiment. No, he took the anger without stepping back. You are the person my court harmed, and the only living witness the beasts seem willing to answer. Evelyn wanted to hate that answer. Instead, she found its edges too honest to grip. If I stay, I want Mara safe. Silas will punish her for speaking to me. Done. I want Alara's notes sealed from the curse office. Done. I want no handlers near me with chains or whistles. Done. She studied him. You agree very quickly. I should have agreed to laws like these before someone had to ask. The firelight moved across his face, softening nothing, revealing more. Evelyn's distrust did not disappear. It would have been foolish if it had. But it shifted enough to leave room for something else, a dangerous curiosity about the man whose beast answered the name she feared to speak. Beneath them, the pit stirred again, then quieted when she sat. Caleb noticed. They listened to you. Evelyn touched the scar behind her ear. No. I think they've been waiting for someone to listen back. Outside the open door, footsteps approached too quickly. A guard appeared, pale and tense. Your Majesty, Lady Vanessa and Lord Mercer have petitioned the council. They claim the Omega used forbidden name binding on the royal pit chamber and on you. Evelyn's stomach dropped. Caleb's eyes turned molten. On what evidence? The guard swallowed. They say your refusal to cage her proves influence. Silence fell, heavy and familiar. The next cage had arrived dressed as concern. Evelyn stood before Caleb could speak. Fear beat hard in her chest, but so did something steadier. Then I stay. Caleb looked at her. You do not have to answer them tonight. If I run back to the ward, they win the story before dawn. She pulled her hair away from the crescent scar, letting the silver gold light show. You said I am a witness. Then let me witness what they do when a monster stops hiding. Caleb's beast went utterly still, not controlling, not claiming, but recognizing the courage it had no right to touch. He lowered his head, a gesture so small only she could see it. Beside me in council, if you choose. Evelyn's breath caught at the side. Not behind a gate. Not below a balcony. Beside. She did not trust him fully. She was not ready to. But when she walked toward the open door, Caleb waited until she crossed first, and every beast beneath Ravenshaw Palace lowered its head in silence, as if the cursed girl had just taken one step closer to the truth. The council chamber above the Lycan pit had been designed so nobles could speak about fear without ever standing near it. High windows showed the storm-dark courtyard outside, silver lamps burned along polished black walls, and a carved balcony overlooked the lower pit through thick glass, far enough from the beasts that danger became theory. Evelyn Carter entered first because Caleb Ravenshaw had waited for her to choose the doorway, but the moment she stepped inside, every noble face turned toward the glowing crescent scar behind her left ear. She had pulled her long dark ash-brown hair aside on purpose, letting the silver-gold light show against her pale porcelain skin. Her gray ward dress was plain, her small body exhausted from the long night, her silver-gray eyes shadowed with fear, yet she kept her chin lifted because hiding had only taught the court where to aim. Caleb followed several paces behind, tall and powerful with broad shoulders, light olive skin, black hair brushed back from his sharp, cold face, molten gold Lycan eyes controlled but bright, wearing black and silver royal clothing that made the chamber fall silent without a command. He did not stand in front of Evelyn. He stood beside the witness table, close enough for every noble to know he had brought her under protection, far enough that no one could claim he guided her words. Lady Vanessa Crown sat near the front in her black, silver-trimmed gown, fair-skinned and golden-haired, her beauty sharpened by anger. Lord Silas Mercer stood with a sealed curse record under one arm, calm as a man who believed the law had already agreed with him. Dr. Alara Reed placed her healer's notes on the table. Across from her, an elderly woman in dark blue archive robes waited with a locked iron case. She was Miriam Archive, retired keeper of old pit lineages, her silver hair braided tightly, her face deeply lined, and her eyes steady enough to make Silas look less comfortable than before. Caleb spoke first. The chamber will hear medical findings and archive history before any pit ruling. Vanessa rose at once. Your Majesty, with respect, the issue is immediate safety. The cursed Omega has already produced royal beast response. Caleb's eyes did not move from the council table. Then the court should be eager to know whether it was ever a curse. A quiet shock moved through the room. Evelyn felt the word land inside her ribs. Ever. Not whether the curse had changed. Whether it had existed at all. Silas opened his record. Evelyn Carter was classified at 17 after unnatural Lycan submission. Witnesses confirmed a beast knelt after she spoke an unidentified sound. Law requires restriction when a voice produces obedience in restricted creatures. Alara's voice was calm. The mark behind her left ear is not a spreading curse pattern. Silas looked at her. You cannot make that conclusion from one examination. I can conclude what it is not. Alara unfolded a sketch of the crescent scar, drawn with careful notes. The heat moves inward. The line is sealed at both ends. Its center responds to names and pain, not proximity. No transfer signs. No contamination marks. No corruption threads. A noble elder frowned. Then what is it? Alara looked at Evelyn before answering, as if the explanation belonged to her first. Evelyn gave a small nod. A seal, Alara said. The chamber stirred. Vanessa's fingers tightened on the edge of her chair. Silas gave a soft laugh. Convenient. A curse girl becomes sealed the moment the king questions her handling. Miriam Archive unlocked the iron case. Not convenient. Old. She removed a brittle registry wrapped in black cloth and placed it on the table. The Ravenshaw pit was once served by beastkeeper families. They did not command Lycans. They witnessed true names so wounded beasts could be calmed, oath-bound beasts could be released from false command, and crown beasts could be recognized without chains. Evelyn could barely breathe. Beastkeeper. The words felt like the hidden shape of every night she had spent listening through stone. Caleb's molten gold eyes narrowed. Why are these families absent from current records? Miriam turned a page. Because after the Third Pit Accord, the contract and curse offices absorbed their duties. Some lineages were retired. Some were hidden. Some were marked dangerous. Silas's voice sharpened. Old roles do not excuse forbidden name-binding. Miriam looked up. Name-binding enslaves. Beast-keeping recognizes. The distinction is the first law of the old pit. The scar behind Evelyn's ear warmed. Beneath the chamber floor, the beasts shifted, not loudly, but enough that every person in the room felt the stone answer. Vanessa looked toward the floor, and then at Evelyn with real fear, not disgust. Real fear was uglier because it meant she finally believed. Caleb asked, "Is Evelyn Carter from such a line?" Miriam hesitated, and that hesitation made Evelyn's stomach drop. Her mother, Lycan Carter, served in the lower infirmary under an assumed name. Archive fragments suggest Lycan was descended from the Veil Keeper line, one of the last families able to hear crown beast names. Silas slammed his record shut. Fragments. Suggestions. Not proof. Miriam lifted a second document, sealed with old wax. Then perhaps your own office note will help. Silas went still. Miriam read, subject displays crescent listener mark behind left ear. Beast response confirmed. Recommend classification as curse to prevent public revival of beast keeper claim. Seal applied under emergency pit authority. Signed, Lord Silas Mercer. The chamber erupted. Evelyn gripped the edge of the table. The words moved through her too slowly to understand at first. Seal applied. Not discovered. Applied. 6 years in the ward, 6 years of gloves and isolation and servants afraid to touch her, all because the man who called her monster had needed the world to fear what she might be. Caleb's face changed into something cold enough to quiet the chamber. You sealed her. Silas's composure cracked only at the edges. Emergency authority permits containment of unknown influence. Evelyn turned to him. Her voice came out softer than she expected. You knew I was not cursed. I knew you were dangerous. Because a beast knelt instead of suffering. Because obedience given to the wrong bloodline destabilizes crown order. Caleb stepped forward, but Silver Council law flared faintly from the floor, warning the affected king against direct action while his own beast response remained under review. Vanessa rose quickly, seizing the opening. Exactly. If she carries a line that can call crown beasts, then the danger is greater, not smaller. She could influence the Alpha King himself. Evelyn flinched despite herself. There it was again, the fear she had carried since dreams first gave her the name Selim. What if hearing was not enough? What if one spoken name could bend someone who had not chosen to answer? Caleb looked at her across the table, and the silence between them became sharp. He suspected something now. Not that she was evil. Not that Silas was right. But that the name she carried touched him personally. His molten gold eyes held a question he did not ask aloud, because asking it in front of Vanessa would weaponize the answer. Evelyn appreciated that so much it hurt. Silas saw the exchange and recovered his footing. The court observes unusual silent communication between the cursed subject and affected alpha. Alara snapped, she is not a subject. Until the seal is legally removed, she remains under curse classification. Miriam's voice trembled with anger. The classification is fraudulent. Then challenge it through pit law, Silas said. His eyes moved to Vanessa. She stood taller, understanding the path he had built. I invoke the law of the pit, Vanessa said clearly. If a suspected beastkeeper can affect crown response, the pit itself must judge whether beasts kneel by recognition or binding. Evelyn's hands went cold. The room blurred around the edges. Caleb's voice dropped. No, the council law glowed brighter. Silas bowed. Your Majesty, as the affected alpha, you cannot block the invocation alone. I can suspend it pending archive review. Not when a noble Luna candidate claims immediate crown safety concern. Vanessa's smile returned, smaller now, more dangerous, because it had fear behind it. I claim it. Miriam closed her eyes. Alara whispered, this is not healing. This is spectacle. Evelyn stared through the glass balcony toward the lower pit. Shadows moved below, ancient and patient. For a moment she was 17 again, watching a beast kneel and realizing mercy could be punished if it embarrassed the powerful. Caleb came as close as the law allowed. You do not have to speak any name in that pit. Evelyn looked at him. If I stay silent, they call me monster. If you speak, they will call you weapon. Then they have already chosen the ending. His jaw tightened. I have not. The scar behind Evelyn's ear pulsed with gold, and the forbidden name brushed her thoughts, warm and sorrowful. Selim. Caleb's beast answered behind his eyes before he could hide it. The lamps leaned toward Evelyn. Vanessa saw. Silas saw. The entire chamber saw enough reaction to become afraid. Vanessa pointed at the light. There. She does it without speaking. Tell me again she is safe. The nobles whispered. Some moved away from Evelyn's side of the table. Mara Finch, who had been brought in as a servant witness and kept near the back, stepped forward despite a guard's warning. She calms them. She has always calmed them. You are all afraid because the beasts trust her more than they trust you. The chamber fell silent. Evelyn looked at Mara with panic and gratitude. Silas turned cold eyes on the young servant. Your testimony is noted as emotionally compromised. Caleb's voice struck low. Mara Finch is under my protection. Vanessa leaned toward the council. How many protections will the king give before we admit influence? The trap closed. Every act of decency became evidence. Every silence became suspicion. Every beast that quieted near Evelyn became a reason to throw her closer to the thing they claimed she controlled. The senior council elder rose face grave. By Luna's safety invocation and disputed curse status, the law of the pit will proceed at moonrise. The girl will enter the Lycan pit under public witness. The beast's response will determine whether her mark is recognized or condemned. Evelyn heard the words as if from underwater. The girl. Not Evelyn. Not witness. Not beastkeeper. The girl. Caleb's eyes burned gold, but the law held him back from overruling alone. Silas looked satisfied. Vanessa looked relieved because fear had found procedure. Evelyn looked at the archive note with Silas's signature and understood the midpoint truth in its cruel half-shape. She was not cursed, but she was still not free. Her bloodline had a name, but the court had found a way to put that name on trial before she could understand it. She lifted her chin slowly. At moonrise, then. Caleb turned toward her. Evelyn. She met his gaze, distrust and unwanted faith twisting together inside her chest. If I am what they fear, I need to know before they write another 6 years over my life. Beneath the chamber, every Lycan lowered into silence, and the forbidden name waited in the dark like a key no one could use without opening the wrong door. By moonrise, Ravenshaw Court had filled every balcony above the Lycan pit, because fear was always popular when someone else had to stand inside it. Silver lamps burned along the circular walls, black banners hung motionless in the damp underground air, and the pit below waited under a shaft of cold moonlight. Evelyn Carter stood at the upper gate with 2 guards behind her, small and pale in the same gray ward dress the court had used to mark her for 6 years, her porcelain skin nearly luminous beneath the silver light. Her long dark ash-brown hair pulled away from the faint crescent-shaped scar behind her left ear because hiding it had not saved her, and her silver-gray eyes fixed on the stone steps leading down. Every person above her had a name, a title, a seat, a witness rail. She had only her body, her breath, and a secret name she was terrified to speak. Lord Silas Mercer stood beside the council platform with his black lawkeeper robes neat as ever, light skin calm. Gray-brown hair smoothed back, the fraudulent curse record resting open in his hands like proof instead of accusation. Lady Vanessa Crown sat near the front in black and silver, fair skin flawless, blonde hair pinned beautifully, her face solemn for the crowd and hungry beneath it. Alpha King Caleb Ravenshaw stood behind a glowing line of old pit law, tall and powerful, broad shoulders held rigid, light olive skin shadowed by the lamps, black hair brushed back from his sharp, dangerous face, molten gold Lycan eyes fixed on Evelyn with restrained fury. The law named him affected alpha, which meant every step toward her could be called influence, every order could be called bias, and every instinct to protect her had been turned into another bar of the cage. The senior council elder lifted a silver staff. The law of the pit will determine whether Evelyn Carter's mark is recognized as keeper blood or condemned as forbidden name-binding. Evelyn almost laughed at the fairness they pretended to offer. The court had sealed her, named her cursed, isolated her, and now asked the beasts to prove whether she deserved to be treated like a person. Silas addressed the balconies. If the beasts kneel under free recognition, the mark may be reviewed. If they show confusion, distress, or unnatural submission, the curse classification stands. If the Alpha King's beast responds during the test, his testimony remains suspended. Evelyn looked across the pit to Caleb. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He had promised not to save her so loudly that they could no longer hear her, and that promise hurt more tonight because the pit stairs were open. Dr. Alara Reed stood near the healer rail, dark brown skin tense in the silver light, medical notes clutched against her chest. Mara Finch stood behind the servants, brown face pale with fear, hands pressed together as if prayer could become a shield. Evelyn drew one breath and stepped down into the pit. No one touched her. No one needed to. The law was heavy enough. At the bottom, the stone floor felt colder than the curse ward ever had. Iron gates circled the pit, each one holding a shadow larger than memory. The beasts behind them breathed slowly, waiting. Evelyn stood in the center of the moonlight, the crescent scar behind her ear burning, and for a moment every lesson of 6 years returned at once. Do not touch. Do not sing. Do not speak names. Do not make them afraid. Do not make them believe you are more than the curse office wrote. Silas's voice echoed from above. Begin with silence. Let the beasts react without verbal influence. The first gate opened. A dark-furred Lycan stepped out, massive and silver-eyed, its paws silent on stone, its gaze fixed on Evelyn. She knew this one. Not from sight. From sound. It had wept through the floor when storms came, too proud to cry aloud, too wounded by old command to rest. A small true name rose behind her scar. Evelyn bit the inside of her cheek to hold it back. The Lycan stopped several yards away. It did not attack. It did not kneel. It trembled, trapped between wanting to approach and fearing the watching law above. The balconies erupted in whispers. Silas raised his voice. Confusion. Not recognition. Evelyn's stomach dropped. Vanessa leaned toward the council. The creature resists her. The Lycan made a low sound, and the pain inside it brushed Evelyn like cold rain. She could help. One whispered name might calm it. But speaking would prove Silas's charge. Silence would let him call the beasts to stress her failure. The trap was perfect because it made mercy evidence of guilt. A second gate opened. Then a third. More Lycans emerged into the moonlight, not lunging, not peaceful either, circling at a distance, ears low, eyes bright. The crowd above saw danger. Evelyn heard grief. The scar behind her left ear burned hotter until her vision blurred. Names gathered in her mouth like water behind a dam. She pressed both hands to her sides and stayed silent. Observe the pattern, Silas called. The beasts cannot settle unless she speaks. That dependency is binding influence. Ilara shouted from the healer rail. They are responding to stress from the test conditions. Healer opinion is noted, Silas said. Pit response remains primary. Evelyn looked up at Caleb. The old law line blazed between him and the pit stairs. His molten gold eyes had shifted brighter, his beast pushing close to the surface because every creature below was in distress and the woman at the center was refusing to use the only language that might help them. The greater name rose inside Evelyn then. Selim. Not a command. Not a weapon. A homecoming. She swallowed it so hard her throat hurt. Caleb's hands closed into fists, but he did not cross the line. Vanessa saw his struggle and stood. The king reacts. The mark reaches him even in silence. The nobles gasped. Evelyn's fear broke open. "No," she said, but the word was too small for the pit. Silas looked almost sorrowful. "The court has enough to condemn." The council elder hesitated. "The beasts have not attacked. Nor have they freely knelt," Silas said. "The accused withhold speech because speech is the mechanism. Her silence creates distress. Her voice creates submission. Both prove danger." Evelyn stared at him. 6 years of loneliness crystallized into that sentence. If she spoke, monster. If she stayed silent, monster. If beasts suffered, her fault. If beasts calmed, her fault. There was no test. There had never been a test. Only a ritual designed to make the accusation win by any path. The scar behind her ear flickered violently, and the seal inside it tightened like a door being locked again. Evelyn staggered one step, not from harm, but from the crushing sensation of every name being forced back into darkness. The Lycans reacted at once, lowering their heads and whining softly. Silas lifted the curse record. The seal destabilizes under public review. Condemnation is required before the mark spreads. Caleb's voice came from above, low and terrible. "That seal was applied by your hand." The council law flashed, warning him back. Silas bowed. "And tonight proves why emergency authority was necessary." Vanessa looked down at Evelyn, and the pity on her face was almost perfect. "You poor thing. You never learned that some people are locked away because they truly are dangerous." Evelyn looked at the Lycans around her, at their confused silver eyes, at the pain she could ease, but was not allowed to ease without becoming the crime. For the first time, she wondered if the court had already won by making her afraid of her own compassion. Maybe she was not cursed, but what good was a gift that could only be used in rooms ready to condemn it? The old dream name burned in her chest. Selim. Caleb's beast answered silently, and the law line around him flared again. Vanessa pointed at it. "There. Before the whole court. The Alpha King is affected." The council elder lifted the silver staff with visible reluctance. "Pending final review, Evelyn Carter will be removed from pit witness standing and returned to curse classification." Removed. Returned. The words struck harder than the pit's cold. Guards began descending the stairs. Mara cried out from the servant rail. Ilara argued with the council, but her voice was swallowed by noble relief. The Lycans backed away from the approaching guards, distressed but obedient to old fear. Evelyn stood in the center of the pit and felt the scar behind her ear dim to a dull, aching silver. She had almost lost everything without one beast touching her. Her name, her chance, Ilara's proof, Mara's courage, Caleb's trust, the possibility that 6 years had been theft instead of truth. Caleb stepped forward, and the law line burned brighter. Evelyn turned to him and shook her head. "Do not break it for me. If he did, they would bury her beneath his power forever." His face looked carved from pain, but he stopped. The guards reached the pit floor. Silas closed the curse record as if closing her life. Then the oldest Lycan in the pit moved. It was the one no handler approached, white-muzzled, scarred by age rather than fresh harm, its silver eyes clouded, but clear enough to see through every lie in the chamber. It stepped between Evelyn and the guards without threatening them. The pit fell silent. The old beast lowered its head, not fully kneeling, not yet, and pressed one paw against a black stone tile near Evelyn's feet. A hidden seam opened in the floor. Silver light rose from beneath the stone, revealing an old pit inscription no one had seen in generations. Evelyn stared down through tears she refused to shed. The words were written in the same script as the pit oath chain. No voice binds what the first beast remembers freely. Silas went pale. Vanessa stopped smiling. The elder lowered the silver staff. Caleb's molten gold eyes locked on the inscription as his beast went utterly still. The old Lycan looked at Evelyn, waiting, and for the first time the name inside her did not feel like a threat. It felt like permission. The old pit inscription changed the entire shape of the trial because the court could no longer pretend the Lycan pit was only a place of judgment. Beneath Evelyn Carter's feet, silver light rose from the hidden seam in the black stone floor, illuminating the words "No voice binds what the first beast remembers freely." And every noble above the pit fell into a silence so complete that the breathing of the Lycans became the only sound in Ravenshaw Court. Evelyn stood in the center of the moonlight, small and shaking in her gray ward dress, pale porcelain skin glowing with reflected silver, long dark ash-brown hair pulled back from the crescent-shaped scar behind her left ear. Silver-gray eyes wet but fierce as the truth opened under her like ground becoming sky. The oldest Lycan remained before her, white-muzzled and silver-eyed, one paw resting beside the inscription as if it had guarded those words through generations of fear. The guards on the pit floor did not move closer. They looked at the inscription, then at the old beast, then up toward the council rail where Lord Silas Mercer had gone pale for the first time all night. Lady Vanessa Crown stood frozen above in her black and silver gown, fair skin drained of color, blonde hair shining like a crown she had not yet lost. Alpha King Caleb Ravenshaw stood behind the glowing old law line, tall and powerful, broad shoulders rigid, light olive skin lit by gold from his own eyes, his black hair brushed back from a sharp, dangerous face that had gone utterly still. His beast watched through him, not raging, not reaching, but waiting for Evelyn to decide whether the name would be spoken. The senior council elder lowered the silver staff halfway. "What is that inscription?" he demanded. Miriam Archive answered from the witness rail, voice trembling with recognition. "The first beast clause. It predates curse classification. It means voluntary kneeling cannot be used as evidence of binding if the beast remembers the keeper line freely." Silas found his voice too quickly. Ancient floor script cannot override present pit law. The old Lycan lifted its head and looked at him. It did nothing more than look, but Silas stepped back from the rail. Evelyn saw it and understood. The beast did not hate him. That would have been easier. The beast remembered him. Caleb's voice cut low across the chamber. "Why was the clause hidden?" Silas said, "Stone shifts over centuries." Ilara Reed stepped forward at the healer rail, dark brown skin tense in the silver light, medical notes clutched in one hand. The tile was sealed deliberately. "The edges are too clean." Mara Finch's voice rose from the servant rail, thin but brave. The old beast opened it for her. Vanessa turned sharply. "Servant testimony does not interpret law." Evelyn looked up at her. 6 years of silence trembled inside her, but the inscription steadied something deeper. "Neither does fear." Vanessa's face hardened. "You are standing in a pit surrounded by royal Lycans, and you still think this is about fear?" Evelyn turned slowly, looking at each beast. The dark-furred one who hated storms. The injured one from the east gate. The younger silver-eyed beast that always pulled away from whistles. The old white-muzzled Lycan who had opened the stone. None of them advanced. None of them obeyed her like soldiers. They watched her the way wounded things watched the first open door after years of locked rooms. "Yes," Evelyn said. "It has always been about fear. Not theirs. Yours." The scar behind her left ear warmed, no longer burning like a seal tightening, but glowing like a lantern uncovered. Names gathered around her, small true names first, each one carrying pain, memory, and choice. She did not speak them. She did not need to. The beasts had already remembered enough to stand with her. But beneath those names, deeper and brighter, the forbidden name waited, Selim. Caleb's beast answered before she said it, a golden stillness flooding the court. The old law line between him and the pit flickered. Silas saw and lifted the curse record desperately. The Alpha King is reacting. The affected status remains. She is reaching him now. Caleb did not move. Evelyn did not move either. She looked at him across the distance, across the law built to make his protection dangerous and her truth suspicious. "If I say the name," she called, her voice carrying through every balcony, "will it take your choice?" The question shocked the court more than any magic. Caleb's molten gold eyes held hers. He understood what she was asking, and more than that, he understood why she had to ask publicly. "No," he said. "My beast knows its own name. You are not taking it from me by hearing it." Silas shouted, "That claim cannot be accepted from the affected Alpha." Evelyn turned to the oldest Lycan. "Then let the pit answer first." She knelt slowly, not to the court, not to the law, but to the old beast who had remembered what everyone else buried. The nobles gasped because they had expected her to command, to rise crowned by fear, to become the monster they had accused. Instead, she lowered herself to eye level with the creature they had called dangerous and placed her open hands on her own knees, making no demand. "I will not bind you," she whispered. "I will not use your names as chains. If you remember my bloodline, choose freely." The old Lycan's silver eyes softened. It bowed its head. The other beasts followed one by one, not collapsing, not forced, not frantic. They lowered themselves with solemn grace, each movement slow enough for every witness to see there was no command in it. The pit filled with kneeling Lycans, and Evelyn Carter remained kneeling too, surrounded not by monsters, but by witnesses. Then she lifted her face toward Caleb. The name came to her not like a spell, but like something returning to its rightful owner. "Selim," she whispered. The sound was soft, but the pit carried it upward like a bell. Caleb's eyes blazed molten gold. The law line around him shattered into harmless sparks, not because he broke it, but because the first beast claws answered. Behind him, a vast golden black Lycan aura rose in silence, ancient and crowned, not lunging, not claiming, simply recognizing the name spoken without force. Every beast in the pit lowered its head fully. Every lamp in Ravenshaw Court turned gold. Everyone froze. The council elder staggered back. Miriam Archive opened the old lineage registry with shaking hands, and pages that had been blank for decades filled themselves with silver script. "Evelyn Carter," she read, voice breaking, daughter of Lillian Carter, descendant of the Veil Keeper line, last unregistered Beast Keeper Omega of Ravenshaw Pit. Seal applied under false curse authority at age 17. Classification void. Ilara covered her mouth with one hand, eyes shining. Mara began to cry openly, not from fear this time. Evelyn stayed kneeling because if she stood too fast, the world might discover her legs were shaking. Silas slammed his palm on the rail. "Forgery by old magic. This is precisely the danger. She has made the pit speak for her." The old Lycan turned toward the rail. So did every other beast. Not threatening. Witnessing. The hidden inscription brightened again, and more words appeared across the pit floor, spiraling outward around Evelyn. "The keeper does not command the beast. The keeper returns the name stolen by fear." Caleb descended the pit stairs. No law stopped him now. Every step echoed through the chamber, but Evelyn did not feel trapped by his approach. He stopped several feet away, giving her space even as the court watched. His powerful body seemed almost impossible in the moonlit pit, broad shoulders shadowed by golden light, light olive skin warm under the lamps, black hair and sharp face softened only by restraint. Molten gold eyes fixed on her as if nothing else in the world deserved attention. "Evelyn," he said quietly, "may I stand beside you?" The question broke something in her more gently than kindness should. A king asking permission in the pit where she had been sent to lose everything. She nodded. "Beside. Not over them." Caleb's eyes moved to the kneeling beasts. "Beside them too." He turned toward the balconies only after she rose. "Lord Silas Mercer is removed from curse authority and held for tribunal. His records are seized. Every curse classification issued under his office will be reopened. Lady Vanessa Crown's Luna candidacy is suspended immediately for invoking pit law under concealed evidence and for participating in false classification strategy." Vanessa's composure cracked. "You would trust a cursed Omega over your own court?" Caleb's voice dropped into the kind of quiet that made the entire chamber smaller. "She is not cursed. And after tonight, neither is this court trustworthy without proof." Vanessa looked at Evelyn with open hatred now. "She spoke your true beast's name. She asked whether it would take my choice first," Caleb said. "That is more honor than this court gave her in 6 years." Silas tried one final time, voice sharp with desperation. "If she remains near the crown, every beast will answer her before you." Evelyn faced him at last. "They did not answer me before him. They answered truth before fear." The old Lycan gave a low approving sound, and the pit stones glowed under Evelyn's feet. Caleb stepped forward, then stopped again, waiting. She looked at his offered distance and understood the choice inside it. He could have used the public reveal to claim her as crown asset, beast keeper, solution to a political crisis, proof that his reign was chosen by ancient Lycans. Instead, he waited the way the beasts had waited, giving her the dignity of answering in her own time. Caleb lowered himself to one knee in front of her, not touching her, not trapping the moment into romance before she could breathe. The court gasped from every balcony. "Evelyn Carter," he said, voice carrying through stone and moonlight, "Ravenshaw Court named you monster because beasts trusted you more than they trusted its laws. I choose, before every witness here, to protect your name, your freedom, and your right to decide what your gift becomes. I will not bind you, use you, or call your power mine. If you ever stand beside me, it will be because you choose the place, not because the pit knelt." Tears blurred Evelyn's silver-gray eyes. The scar behind her ear glowed silver and gold, no longer a seal, no longer a curse, but a mark of recognition. She looked around at the kneeling beasts, at Mara and Alara, at the servants who had lived too long under laws that made fear respectable, then at Caleb kneeling before her with all his power held back. Slowly, she held out her hand. He took it only after her fingers touched his first. The beasts remained kneeling, but Evelyn stood taller than she ever had in the curse ward. "Then I choose to leave this pit," she said, voice trembling and clear, with every monster this court mislabeled still alive in the record. Caleb rose beside her. "Then we begin there." Above them, the nobles lowered their heads because the pit had spoken, the curse had failed, and the girl they threw into darkness had walked out with every beast as witness. At sunrise, the curse ward doors opened for the last time, and Evelyn Carter walked through them without lowering her eyes. The narrow room where she had slept for 6 years looked smaller in daylight. One cot, one wash basin, one shelf of gray dresses, one barred window threaded with silver that no longer had the authority to keep her afraid. She stood in the doorway with pale porcelain skin warmed by morning light, long dark ash-brown hair loose enough to reveal the crescent mark behind her left ear, and silver-gray eyes steady despite the exhaustion shadowing her beautiful tired face. The mark did not burn now. It glowed softly, silver and gold, no longer a brand the court used to warn people away, but a witness that the name monster had always been a lie. Mara Finch stood beside her, crying quietly and trying to hide it, while Dr. Alara Reed removed the old curse placard from the door with her own hands. Alpha King Caleb Ravenshaw waited several steps behind Evelyn, tall and broad-shouldered in black and silver royal clothing, light olive skin lit by the open corridor, black hair brushed back from his sharp, controlled face, molten gold Lycan eyes calm but impossible to ignore. He did not enter the room until Evelyn looked back and nodded. Even then, he stayed near the threshold. "Burn it?" he asked, looking at the placard. Evelyn took the wooden sign from Alara. "Cursed resident. No contact. No communal access." 6 years of loneliness carved into official letters. She wanted to break it. She wanted to throw it into the pit and watch the court flinch. Instead, she handed it back to Alara. "Keep it in the archive," she said. "Evidence should survive when shame tries to disappear." By noon, Ravenshaw Court gathered again, not in the pit, but in the open council hall where servants could stand beside nobles and hear every word. Lord Silas Mercer stood under tribunal guard with his black robes stripped of office seals, his gray-brown hair less perfect than before, his light skin pale as Miriam Archive read the opened records aloud. False curse classification. Unauthorized seal. Concealed beast keeper lineage. Suppression of healer objection. Manipulation of pit law. Silas called his choices necessary stability until the old pit registry answered with silver script across the council table, "Fear is not law." That ended the last of his defense. He was removed permanently from curse authority, held for full tribunal, and every record under his office was seized for review. Lady Vanessa Crown stood rigid in the second hearing, fair skin cool, blonde hair arranged beautifully, black and silver gown flawless, despite the ruin of her future. The delay of evidence, the Luna's safety invocation, and her role in turning Evelyn's gift into public accusation stripped her of Luna candidacy before the entire court. She tried to leave with dignity, but when she passed Evelyn, her voice lowered. The beast's kneeling does not make you noble. Evelyn looked at her calmly. No. Choosing not to use their fear does. Vanessa had no answer because the room had heard it, and because the beasts beneath the hall gave one low, peaceful sound through the stone. That afternoon, Caleb signed the first decree with Evelyn standing beside him, not behind him. The curse ward was closed. Every child, servant, omega, beast handler, and healer ever classified under curse law would be re-examined by an independent council led by Alara, Miriam Archive, and 2 lower-rank witnesses chosen from the ward records. No one could be sealed under emergency authority without healer consent, archive review, and the person's own testimony. No pit trial could be called for public spectacle. No true name could be used as proof of guilt without evidence of coercion. Evelyn added the final line herself, her hand steady over the page. Beastkeeper recognition is not ownership by the crown. Caleb read it once, then signed beneath it without changing a word. The court hated that line most. Evelyn knew because the nobles became very polite after hearing it. Near sunset, she returned to the Lycan pit alone, though Caleb followed at a respectful distance when she allowed him. The gates were open for air, the silver lamps dimmed, and handlers stood back without whistles. The old white-muzzled Lycan rested near the revealed inscription, silver eyes half closed. Evelyn knelt several feet away, open hands on her knees. I am not ready to know every name, she whispered. The old beast blinked slowly, as if patience was older than law. Caleb stopped beside the stair, giving both of them space. Evelyn looked back at him. You could make me useful to the crown. His molten gold eyes held hers. I could. I will not. You could ask me to speak your beast's name again. I could. I will wait until you choose to. She stood, the gray ward dress moving softly around her ankles, the crescent mark behind her ear warm but peaceful. And if I never choose? Caleb's face softened, not losing danger, only turning it away from her. Then my beast will learn patience from yours. She laughed once, small and surprised, and the sound felt strange because no one in the curse ward had taught her what joy should do with her mouth. Caleb looked at her as if the laugh mattered more than any royal victory. That frightened her in a new way, but it did not make her step back. Outside the pit, evening light poured through the high palace windows. Evelyn walked with him into the open courtyard where the ward children and kennel servants waited. Mara waved through tears. Alara smiled. The beasts below remained calm, not because Evelyn commanded them, but because the palace had finally stopped shouting at what it feared. At the courtyard steps, Caleb paused. May I ask something that is not law? Evelyn turned toward him. You may ask. He lowered himself to one knee before her, not for the court this time, not before balconies or judgment rails, but under the quiet gold of sunset. Will you let me court you, Evelyn Carter, not as beastkeeper, not as proof, not as crown solution, but as the woman who walked into the pit and made my entire kingdom ashamed of its fear? Her breath caught. The old instinct told her to look around for witnesses, traps, clauses, punishments. There were witnesses, yes, but no trap she could see. Only a king with all his power held back, waiting for a girl once called Cursed to decide whether she wanted a hand offered in the light. I am not ready for a bond, she said. Then there will be no bond. I am not ready to belong to a crown. Then do not belong to it. I will stand beside you only if the ward stays closed and the pit laws change for everyone. Caleb bowed his head. Then stand beside me as the person who makes sure I never forget why they had to change. Evelyn stepped closer and offered her hand. He took it only after her fingers touched his first. The mark behind her ear glowed softly, and deep beneath the palace, every Lycan lowered its head, not as servants, not as weapons, but as witnesses. Evelyn Carter had entered the pit as the cursed girl no one was allowed to touch. She left Ravenshaw Palace courtyard as the Beastkeeper Omega who closed the ward, exposed the lawkeeper, broke the false Luna's claim, and chose a king only after he proved he would never turn her name into a chain.